Would you say most of the sound you recorded then was country sound, or did you
well,
do
it mixed
pure
it up.
bluegrass, or
Yeah, we'd mix it up. I would go in and we would do a half session on country music, and I would use studio musicians out of Nashville, such as Chet Atkins and you know, Hank Garland and guys like that. And they were very popular musicians at that time. And I'd do country with them, and then I would bring my band in, which I had at that particular time in '51 and '52, and I would record instrumentals and bluegrass music that way. I would sing the old songs like that. So it worked out. As a combination, it was pretty good.
I also heard some Hank Williams style accompaniment with the banjo.
Yeah, you know, Hank Senior and I were very good friends, and I had the opportunity to meet him in '47 when I was at Knoxville. And he remembered me when I came into Nashville, and so he and I got to be pretty close friends. And of course, he was a very popular guy at that particular time. And we collaborated on some songs that I don't even know what happened to him. At that particular time, we wrote a couple together, and they got lost in the shuffle, so to speak. But I was doing these country songs as well as these bluegrass songs that we call bluegrass today. But it turned out to be very profitable for me.
How was it to play country and bluegrass music in those days? Was it very hard?
Well, you had to, because I was doing a lot of shows and doing a lot of dances. You know, on the weekends I had a regular barn dance, what we call barn dance music, and we would do a live radio program to start the program, and then we would play dance music. And I'd mix it up like that. So we'd have dance music, and I'd sing my country songs, and then we'd do the dance music, and we'd do the bluegrass. So it worked out pretty good for 2 or 3 years there.
And then after Decca, what did you do?
Well, after Decca, I didn't re-sign with Decca in '54, 55 actually, and because they wanted me to sign a long-term contract with them, and I didn't want to be tied down for 4 or 5 years. Because you know, at that particular time, you'd get lost in the shuffle. Most of these record companies would sign you up just to hold you, to keep you from going to another record company. But I didn't want to do that. So there was a guy starting bluegrass, which my favorite music was bluegrass, you know, and country too. But he had started a label in 1952 there in Nashville called Start-A Record Company. And Start-A Record Company at that time happened to be one of the biggest bluegrass labels on the market at that time. And of course he said, he called me one day. I went to Nashville at the DJ convention, and he cornered me in the corner over at the hotel and said, I want you to record for me. And he took me out to the studio, and he showed me all the facilities and everything, and I said, well, and I told him, I said, I just don't like your sound. I'm not interested, see. And he said, well, what do you want to do? I want to record you. And I said, I was working at radio. I was working as a disc jockey on radio at that time and playing music too. And so I told him, I said, let me go back home and produce my own songs. And I'll send them to you, and if you want them, you can release them. So that's what happened. So I stayed with him from 1955 through 1962.
What kind of sound did he have in his Nashville studio that you didn't like?
Well, it was a quality that I didn't like. You know, he was going in and recording anybody that would come in the studio to record. You know, and I was a little persistent because I wanted to do the best job I possibly could. And I felt like that I could do a better job by producing my own songs, and I was very lucky at it because I did some great songs during that era, and from '55 until '62 with Start-A, and I had some pretty big top songs, which was bluegrass.
They came out in '78 or '45?
They came out first on 4. I never did have a '78 with them because '45s was in existence then, and they were all '45 recordings, and I think I did about 36 songs, which was 18 releases with him during that period. And then later on, the company was dissolved, and they closed it up, and the masters laid around for years. And up about a year and a half ago, Englishman called me from Canada and wanted to buy my recordings. See, I had leased them through the company, and he wanted to buy my leases, and I said, no, you can sublease them, and with my permission, and
Yeah.
and you can put out an album, because I never had an album during that particular period. So he released this album, and it just took off because people remembered the songs that I had recorded for Starday at that time.
If we play one of those songs of the re-release album, what song would you suggest? Could you
Well,
announce it?
the most popular song that I had with the Starday was Log Cabin in the Lane, which was an old song. Goes back, 7,500 years. But I put a different arrangement on it.
Yeah.
And I had a boy named Alan Shelton that played the banjo with me. He and I worked up an arrangement. The old little old Log Cabin in the Lane had about 15 or 16 verses, so I condensed it down to 3 verses and worked up the arrangement, and it really took off and did good for me. But I was very lucky. I had 2 or 3 songs in those sessions that I did for Starday. Blue Sunday was a big song for me.
Yeah.
I Wouldn't Change If I Could, which I'd written in '51, was a big song for me.
Yeah.
And that was a big song later on in '83 with Ricky Skaggs.
Yeah.
And I did Road Walk by Fools and many more songs. I mean, at that particular time, I was from '51 until 1964. I was writing a lot of songs, which I didn't consider myself a songwriter, but I had to write my own stuff in order to, produce it and export it to the public.
Would you like to announce for the listeners of Radio Rijswijk the Log Cabin song? Would you like to announce yourself that song?
Why, sure.
Log Cabin in the Lane, and then we play it afterwards?
Why, sure. Ladies and gentlemen and bluegrass fans, here's my recording of Log Cabin in the Lane.
You said you